Hey, so today I want to talk about everything that is wrong with the foundation program allocation system for resident doctors starting in the UK. So my name's Maria, I'm a final year med student in Cambridge, and I recently found out where in the country I was going, and I shared it in this video. And then I explained a little bit about how the system works. So if you're wondering about that, I've explained that too. But today I want to complain about the system and explain why it sucks and, you know, maybe how things could be improved. So yeah, part of it is definitely me wanting to get a few things off of my chest. But I have done some research. I've had a look at what other people are saying. I've talked to people, but I've also had a look at what the BMA's position is on this and what their main motions are for improving the system. And you know what? A lot of it is quite reasonable. So that's what I want to talk about today, breaking down all of these issues that I found, explaining them, and I'd be really curious about your perspective on this, and seeing what you think about the system and how it can be changed as well. So first of all, the system is very divisive, and there is a huge chunk of people who are being allocated to parts of the country where they have no personal or professional ties. They're starting a very difficult job, and they're probably going to be quite isolated because they've gotten their 10th, 15th or 18th choice. So the way the system works is that they prioritize giving people their first choice. The first year that happened, 75% of people got their first choice, which was pretty normal compared to the old system. And it wasn't actually as high as some of the previous years. So back in 2020 to 2021, 77% of people got their first choice. So the new system didn't seem to be making things better. This year, 84% of people have gotten their first choice, which does look really good on paper. But my suspicion is that lots of people aren't being honest about what their top choice is, and they're compromising and choosing what would have been their second, third or fourth choice instead, in a bid to not be sent across the country to somewhere that they've never been. So for example, I think quite a lot of people, instead of putting London down, went for Kent, Surrey and Sussex. And KSS actually had a big increase in the number of applicants this year. With the new system though, there's been a really big increase in people getting things lower than their top 5 choices and their things out of their top 10 as well. And with people getting their very bottom choice, so 18th, according to the BMA, it's likely that that's increased by 37 times. And that's an outcome that we should really try to prevent completely. That should never really be happening, where we're sending people to their very bottom choice. Instead, there should be a bit more of a balance going on, because I think that's unacceptable. It very much feels like you're treated as a number, and I think there's a huge risk of alienating people. And I think that's why we're seeing a dropout of people who are completely leaving medicine. So in my year, quite a few people have decided that they don't want to be doctors. I think the most public one was this one guy who went viral on LinkedIn because he got allocated Northern Ireland, and you know, after doing med school and a PhD in Cambridge, that seemed completely unacceptable to him. I think even if you weren't to drop out of medicine now, if you were sent somewhere really bad for F1 and F2 that just didn't align with what you wanted, you'd be much more likely to leave the NHS later down the line for F3 and beyond. There's also a lot of discontent because of the fact that medical graduates from the UK aren't being prioritised in any way. So you also have international medical graduates. These are IMGs, and these are people who have gotten their medical degree from somewhere else, and then they decide to apply to the foundation programme here and be an F1. And the thing is, they are treated exactly the same in the preference-informed allocation system that is used for deciding where you go in the country. So the BMA is quite opposed to this because UK medical graduates don't really have that much choice of where they go to work. So you have to do F1 to get your full GMC registration. Before that, you only have a provisional license, so you're kind of limited as to where you can go. You really have to do the F1 here. Whereas IMGs, they have a lot more choice of where they can go. There's also a significant financial investment that's been made into all of these UK medical graduates. So in terms of taxpayer money, that's about £230,000, or at least it was back in 2017. It's probably more now. And in terms of personally to all of these UK medical graduates and their families, that's also a significant amount to then, risk people leaving after doing medical school. And on top of that, there's a precedent for prioritising your own graduates. That's the case for medical graduates in Ireland, in New Zealand and Australia, as well as dentistry graduates in the UK. So it's just a bit odd that we don't do it here. And I think it leads to more discontent that could have been avoided quite easily. The system itself is consistently unfair. So the rank you get is used for every single stage of the application process. So it's used when deciding which region of the country you get, which sub-region of that you get, which job and hospital you get as well. So it's like you get punished multiple times again and again, because let's say you get your 18th choice, likely you'll then get the worst hospital for the worst jobs within that as well. And it's really unfair, and that's easy to solve because you could just run the algorithm again. It's not that difficult to run a computer program multiple times. It's just an automated list. That's an easy fix. But, they haven't thought about doing that because they don't care. The system is also very blinded in that you don't know how you're going to rank in the country. They've spent the last 4 to 6 years teaching you how to make good decisions. And, for this huge life-changing decision, which is going to affect your job and where you live the next 2 years, you can't really make an informed decision because you have no information. I think also it kind of rewards risk-taking people in some ways. I think if you're quite risk-averse, you're going to avoid going to anywhere popular in the country. So you're going to avoid things like London, Severn, so like Bristol area, probably Birmingham, probably Manchester. And that means that personalities like that are actually getting punished as well, which I think is unfair. I think also it's likely that men are going to be getting more of these positions because, they're more likely to take that risk. There's a huge demeritisation going on as well. So on the old system, it was based on how well you did academically and whether you had publications, amongst other things. Whereas now it's just based on random things, which is, well, one, it's weird because every other stage of the application process is based on merit. So getting into medical school is based on how well you did academically, what specialty you go into and the hospitals you get is based on, your portfolio and how well you've done on exams. So it's weird that this one stage is just completely random. Also, with any other job, it's merit-based. You take on the person who is most suited for that job. So, yeah, one, that's weird. But two, there's no incentive to do any better in medical school in the exams compared to just passing. And so, at least for me personally, I found that I just didn't study as hard, in 6th year compared to, say, 4th year. Back in 4th year, I thought we would be ranked. And so I put in a lot more effort into learning everything. Whereas for 6th year, when I got to the point where I thought I knew enough to pass, that was it, I prioritised spending time with my family and my friends instead. And I think that was quite fair. I think that's kind of sad. But, according to the GMC, I think, there's no correlation between medical school performance and how well you are as a doctor. And so they decided that they should scrap it. And they also don't want to go back with the SJT, so the situational judgment test, because apparently that was quite flawed and had a lot of discrimination in it as well. And there's also the SFP. So this is the specialised foundation programme. This is the more academic one. That used to be completely based on merit. And since it's an academic programme, I really think it should be based on merit, because I think people who are interested in research and have a track record of doing research are probably going to make the most of those opportunities. And so they should be prioritised rather than it being on the random allocation system, which is the case for almost all of the SFP places nowadays. There's no way to appeal the outcomes, which is annoying. For most financial or mental health reasons, those aren't seen as severe circumstances. And so whatever you get, you're really stuck with. The system itself is designed really badly and is disruptive. So you spent a whole chunk of the year just waiting for, any information to come out. And then the windows that you actually have to be making these huge decisions about where you'll be working are so tight. So for the FPP, the windows are only 48 hours, which is tiny. And then with the other system, for ranking all of the jobs, you have a week. And I've had to rank 400 jobs in this time. The interface is absolutely terrible. Whoever came up with this should get sacked because it's horrible. You have to manually drag and drop everything, and each job doesn't actually show what it involves. You have to press on it. It takes forever, and you have to find some sort of workaround. So that's either using Excel, doing some clever programming, or paying for additional software to make it usable. Otherwise, you could easily spend like 10 hours ranking all of these jobs. It's horrible. And, by the time you've ranked 50 jobs, then having to manually drag and drop things to the other side of the screen becomes impossible, and then you risk completely messing up the list. It's such a jarring system. I can't explain how bad it is. Honestly, horrific. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. But yeah, they make it as difficult as possible. They also schedule a lot of these tight deadlines for around the time that people have exams. So some of my friends, they had their final practical exams this week, which is literally when they have the ranking to do for like hundreds of jobs, which I think makes things really complicated. And then the last thing is the placeholders. So according to the BMA last year, this was estimated at about 1,000 people. So these people aren't told what job they're going to start until about 3 weeks before they're meant to start. Instead, they know what region of the country they're going to be in. So, for example, all of Scotland. But they don't know until 3 weeks or 4 weeks before exactly what hospital and what rotations they're going to be doing. It's because they're waiting for people to drop out of the system and give up those jobs. But it's really disruptive because you can't plan anything about rent, annual leave, your life in general. And it's a really stressful position to be in. They also don't have any choice of what jobs they have, because at least, sure, I had to rank these 400 jobs, but at least I have some sort of say over what specialties I'm going to spend 2 years in. They have no say. They might get horrible rotations. And given the fact that somebody would have likely rejected those jobs already, that might be the case. So yeah, really annoying. Like, this system is genuinely, it's horrible. This is what I think is wrong with the foundation program system. I'd be really curious to hear about what your thoughts are and how you think the system could be improved. Has it affected you in any way? Yeah, I'm really curious. So if you have any answers to those, put those in the comments. But yeah, I just wanted to get a lot of this off of my chest. And hopefully it's been useful if you've been affected by this or you're curious about the system as well. Anyway, that's all from me. I'll see you guys in a future video.